Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Life Science 7A. This is your teacher, Mr. Hescox. Welcome back. We're going to move on to the last section in Chapter 1. We just finished talking about spontaneous generation. For those of you that don't remember, spontaneous generation, life from non-living things. Your opening question was, what would have happened if Pasteur's experiment were true? Both flasks should have turned cloudy with bacteria, would be your answer. So today we're going to look at the two types of reproduction. We have asexual reproduction, which is by far the widest used on Earth, even though you're least familiar with it. And then we have sexual reproduction that takes two parents, asexual meaning one. You'll have some homework tonight. Your quizzes and tests are coming. How do organisms make more of themselves? Since organisms don't live forever, we must produce new organisms like themselves. Two ants will only give birth to more ants. They will not give birth to bees. Reproduction is the process in which an organisms produce more of themselves. It has to be within the same species. Those new living organisms are called offspring. We are offspring of our parents. That's the perfect example here. So I'm going to talk about asexual first. Asexual reproduction happens in more things on Earth than you ever imagine. Problem is, those things are so small we don't see them. Asexual, the prefix a in asexual actually means not. So not sexual reproduction is when we don't have the combination of genes from two parents. Fission is the splitting of an organism from one into two, and I'll show you that on the next couple slides. Now, budding is a really crazy type of asexual reproduction that an organism can grow a new little baby organism off the side of it. It happens in some types of plants. Sponges can do it. There are these things called hydra, and hydra kind of look like this. They have these tentacles, and then they will literally grow a little tiny hydra right off the side. And eventually that little tiny hydra grows into a new hydra. And that's called budding. And then I'll talk a little bit more about budding in yeast. Yeast is by far the most common, like the yeast that we make bread with. And then sexual reproduction requires a genetic material from two parents. We are made up of egg and sperm. Sperm from your dad, egg from your mom, 23 chromosomes dad, 23 chromosomes mom, bam, 46 chromosomes in you. This is a time-lapsed GIF I found of binary fission, where one cell divides into two cells. I believe these are types of algae. I can tell by the green. Oftentimes you'll see the bacteria do this. So you start out with one bacteria. Now bacteria have circular strands of DNA. They don't have rod-like chromosomes like ours. Eventually you get a little bit of a pinch in your bacteria. So they've copied their DNA in each one set of the DNA, and this pinch gets greater and greater until the two cells are basically there. And then if I come over here, these two cells will separate into two separate bacteria. This is what we call binary fission. So this would be something for like bacteria, like E. coli is a real common one that you find in your intestines. The other asexual reproduction we're talking about is yeast. Now, yeast are pretty crazy little individuals. The most common yeast that you probably have heard of would be the yeast like in bread. And yeast are interesting in the fact that they usually have more than one nuclei. So you start out with a yeast cell, and your yeast cell forms a little bit of a bulge. And these multinuclei, the nuclei moves into the bulge. The bulge is going to get larger, something like that. Eventually, that bulge forms a new cell wall between the two cells. So there's my nucleus here, there's my nucleus here. This is the new cell wall. And then finally, you have a big yeast and a little yeast, and the yeast will actually get bigger and it will grow. Two separate individual living organisms. All right, let's recap real quick. So we have two types of reproduction, sexual and asexual. Sexual requires two parents and genetic input from both parents. Asexual reproduction is one organism reproducing organisms that are genetically identical to themselves. Two most common types, fission, which is one cell dividing into two, or budding, when you grow a new organism off of yourself. Make sure you get your work done tonight. Be good, stay safe. Until next time, I'm Mr. Hescox. See ya.